Hi everyone, I'm Amanda with This Lovely here, and today I'm going to give you a little tour of my studio and show you the things that I've been working on to get ready for the Unglued Virtual Fest this Sunday, the 14th, and then I'm going to do a little demo for you to show you how I make some of my pieces. My studio is located in 62 Doors in downtown Minot, and I've been down here in this space for about 14 years. We'll go in and take a look around. I'll show you some of the stuff I've been working on. So in the front of my studio I have a display area that I can kind of use as a little shop when we're open. And some of the new stuff that I have on display here that'll be available for the Unglued Virtual Fest are these North Dakota necklaces, which I've been making for about a year, and I just love to make them. They're really, really fun. They're just simple pieces cut out with a bail glued on the back. They have these decals that I place on the back to add a little extra protection, and then they're sealed either with a clear coat, or some of them have a layer of clear resin on the back to give them a little more strength. I've also been making keychains that are just the same types of bezels that I use for necklaces, but kind of with the more funky pieces that I think maybe might be a little strange for a necklace. I don't know, maybe someone else would wear them. But I think these are really, really fun, and there's something a little different, especially for people that don't like to wear jewelry. So I have several of those in different shapes and sizes and designs. I'll have a few pairs of new earrings, various posts and teardrops in round, and probably about 4 or 5 pairs of these little wood bezel earrings. I'm going to look closer here so you can see. So instead of the standard metal bezels that I usually use, these are just wood. They add a little dimension, and I like how they really make the little focal piece pop. I have just a few pairs of those to use, but they'll be for sale, and I think they're really, really fun. So I kind of have a whole display here of a bunch of new necklaces, my standard shapes and sizes that I will be selling. Over here, let me back up a little bit here so you can see in my work desk area. I also have some of these larger, I guess you could call them statement pieces that I've been making. Most of them will have, again, just a bail on the back, and they'll have that decal and a clear coating. Let's finish. The rest of these are works in progress here. And then I've also been experimenting with adding a nice like suede cord, and I really like the way it enhances the design of some of them. So I might have 1 or 2 that have this cord instead of a chain. So those for sale. And for the first time in my shop, I will have framed pieces. I've been making them for a while, I've just never listed them in my Etsy shop. So I just kind of make these little framed animals. I also have squirrels, more of the foxes, and North Dakota shapes. And I do have some birds too, but that's really a work in progress, so there's really kind of not much to see there yet, but I should have a couple of those as well. But they're just they're about a 6x6 piece, and I just play with fun papers and sometimes fabric to use as the background. And they're just these cute, lightweight little pieces, saw hanger on the back. So I have a few of those. Okay, and now I'll kind of show you a little bit of the rest of my studio here. I actually got Princess to lay down and stay still. She's waiting for a treat, and she's not happy because I'm doing this instead of giving her a treat. So we kind of have just a little bit of everything on this shelf here. Some of my stuff that I collect, little tchotchkes, more cups. I really love to organize things, so I have all these cute little card catalog, I guess, card tins, and a bunch of other like old coffee and flower tins, and I just hold a whole bunch of bits and bobs and pieces of paper and everything. I love to label everything after it's organized, so I've used my vintage label maker and labeled pretty much everything. I still can't find what I'm looking for half the time, but at least I can kind of get a general idea, maybe. So then as I go further back in my studio, I have all of my supplies for making necklaces and all my other plate designs. So I have tons and tons of plates and cups, bowls, pretty much anything that kind of strikes my fancy and that I think I can use. I get most of my stuff from thrift stores, yard sales, things that are broken or really, really cheap. I get some things donated to me. People don't need things anymore and they give them to the plate lady. I have all of these little drawers are filled with the small pieces that are left over after I've cut something big or just saving the small scraps. I can use pretty much every piece because they can get pretty small, even like down to the earrings are pretty small scraps that I can use. So I tend to save everything and don't throw any of it away. I've tried to organize them by color, as you can see here. Again, it's meant to help me find things, but I start to get so much stuff that I'm often surprised when I open a drawer and find things that I forget I had. So it's kind of exciting, but I'd still spend way too much time opening and closing these drawers trying to find just the right pieces, but it's kind of fun. They're like little treasure chests. And a lot of the pieces that I make are just one-offs. And maybe that I only have one small area of that plate that was usable, or maybe I have more pieces of those plates, but I do them in a different shape when I make a necklace. So most of the time when I list the stuff in my shop, it's one of a kind. That's the only one that you're going to be able to purchase at that time. So you better grab it while you can. But oftentimes I have people contact me saying, hey, I saw this picture of something you sold and I was wondering if I could get something like it. And quite often I can actually make something similar if I do have that plate. So it never hurts to ask. Okay, so it's swinging around here. I've got more storage and even more plates under my workbench here. Tubs and tubs of broken plate pieces, crates, more piles, somewhat organized, somewhat not. And then this is my main workspace for doing all the cutting and the finishing pieces. Show you a little more about those. So this is a ring saw. And what that means is that the blade is circular. And so it kind of twirls around as it's going. And get in here and get some light. The blade is actually a diamond coated grit blade, which means that it more grinds the material away rather than cut it. So this is not like a sharp blade. It doesn't exactly feel great if you actually get your finger with it when it's running, but it's not going to hurt you like a normal blade does. And then this down here is a reservoir for water. So you need to keep this filled with cool water while you're working, and it constantly rotates, it cycles with the blade and keeps it cool. So it kind of shoots water coming out of here the entire time you're cutting. So after I cut the shapes, then I smooth them down and finish them off using a glass grinder, which is the same kind of concept. You have just these diamond grit bits here, closer, that just grinds away the material. Again, cool water is kept in this reservoir and a little sponge stays in here. so that it keeps your piece nice and wet. So the water for both of these, it not only keeps the blade cool, but it also helps to keep down some of the dust when you're cutting, because it's a grind, it kind of really shoots material off in all directions. So you can get a lot of dust, a lot of overspray, a lot of mess. Hence the lovely shower curtain that I have back there. And then I also have a drill press over here that I use occasionally for drilling holes into the pieces, like the necklace I showed you that has the cord, the suede cord. I had to drill holes in each side there. And I used to do that just with a Dremel or a regular drill, and then a friend of mine gave me this old drill press to use, and it just adds so much more control, and it's the best thing ever. I'm in love with the drill press. So that's really my basic setup, and then I will show you a little more here. We'll get more into detail, kind of how I start my pieces, and then I'll show you how I cut them, and we'll get that set up a little closer here. Okay, so I've got my gloves on, all ready to start the demo and start cutting. But first I'd like to show you how I actually set up the shapes to be cut out. So I have all these little plastic templates that I've made that match all of the bezels that I use. So it just makes it easier for me to kind of visualize by moving shapes around on a plate and decide where I think it'll look the best. Then once I have that figured out, I just trace it with a Sharpie marker, let it dry, and it's ready to cut. After things are cut out, then I will take them over to my glass grinder and smooth them out. I can usually get pretty accurate with the saw, but sometimes it gets to be just a little too much extra that needs to be worn down. I also prefer to cut things a little larger than they need to be, so that I have a little more to work with as I'm smoothing them down. I'd much rather spend the time doing that than cutting something too small and then not being able to use it for the bezel that I've planned to use it for, and then I'll be stuck starting over. Okay, so now I'm just gonna set up the camera and we'll get started on the demo. Okay, so I've already used my fox template pieces and drawn out my fox shape on the plate. I decided to use a larger piece to cut today because it'll be much easier for you guys to see what's going on. Otherwise, it kind of gets blocked by the saw here. Okay, so we're ready to start. This process is very slow, and you kind of have to let the saw do the work for you rather than pushing your plate. You could break the blade that way. It's also very noisy. so now my basic piece is cut out, and I can take it over to the grinder and smooth out all these edges. Sometimes you get spots that are a little rough because I have to turn the plate so much in order to fit it before it hits the edge of the saw here. Luckily, the back side of this one is pretty flat, so I don't have to actually grind down anything on the back to get it to lay flat. So that's nice. That'll save a little time. Okay. Okay, now it's all ready for me to let it dry, and then I will give the edges a nice clear coat and let that dry, and then it will be ready to frame. Thanks for checking out my studio and watching the demo. If you have any questions, I would love to hear them, so just shoot me a message or leave them in the comments. Be sure to check out my stuff at the Unglued Virtual Fest online on Sunday, March 14th, starting at 10 a.m. And I hope you have a great rest of your weekend.